On this episode of Money Matters with Jim Doyle, the skills for financial success grow over a lifetime. Isabel McKenzie, Sheila Biggers, and Evelyn Zeller show that you're never too old to learn. Plan more, worry less. This is Money Matters with Jim Doyle.
On today's show, we'll be exploring balancing needs and wants, budgeting and goal setting, and how the financial habits we develop as children set us up for life. However, the growing use of payday loans, rising debt, and people struggling to afford their lifestyles could be signs of trouble on the horizon. But before we dig into that, I sent Paige to ask, when it comes to financial literacy, how early is too early to start?
Kim, what do you think is a good age to introduce the concept of financial literacy, and why?
I think about 5 or 6 when kids start getting birthday money, and I just think they begin to understand that things cost, when they're saying, hey mom, just write a check or give them your credit card, that they need to understand that there's a cost to this.
6 years of age,
And why is that?
because it will carry them throughout life. I started my grandson when he was 8, picking berries and selling them out front in his little red wagon. And he was 8. He's 26 now, and he's very tight with his money.
Well, I think the earlier the better, because money tends to, it grows exponentially if you start young, and if you have an RSP, then, when you start in your 20s, it's going to leave you with a really nice nest egg.
Do our financial values come from what we learned as children?
I think that's a really good starting point for our financial values, and certainly a lot of what we do in life comes from what we learn as children, but there's so much more that we learn all along the way.
And what's your experience with this been, Isabel?
Well, I think Avram summed it up quite nicely when he said that if you start saving young and you have good financial skills throughout your life, that will assist you in your senior years when you're retired, so that you have the income you need to live the way you want to live.
Now, we're going to need a lot more skills, I guess, when we become seniors. Where does that basically come from?
Well, it comes from a lot of places. I think learning financial literacy in school is a good place to start, but before that is our home. So watching how you spend your money so that your children can learn from you is a good place for it to start.
Well, I think what's important as we age, the financial skills and the financial decisions we're making as we're starting out on life are building for our retirement years. But then we have to look at other skills. So it's not just about how to invest money. It's about our estate planning. It's about powers of attorney. It's about another set of tools necessary for financial literacy in our senior years that are not as important as the tools we need for financial literacy in our younger years.
How many of us in our younger years are going to consider the day that we might have other skills we have to fall back on later in life?
Well, probably not too many. Though I think what we can teach people earlier in life is that they can look a little window ahead. And so if people can look a little window ahead, then they can start to think about the longer window ahead. So for example, at a very young age, you can teach people to save money for their goals. Is it a cell phone they want? Is it a trip that they want? And from there, you can build and start to say, well, when you want a house, or if you want to pay for education, and when you want to stop working and travel for the rest of your life.
Now, we work with a lot of clients who over the years are almost a little bit desperate that we would give their children some of that financial education. We'll be right back.
And they don't save anything, and if you're always spending everything that comes in, you're never going to have any savings.
Welcome back. Why is financial literacy important? It helps us live the lives we want by design. However, when it comes to planning for life's events, the media and social pressure to spend is substantial. Now, how does this impact our spending priorities? Sheila?
Well, I would say that it makes it a constant battle for people to pay attention to why they're making their spending decisions, because there is so much in their face asking them to spend.
And the pressure is just as relentless on people at 75 and 85 to buy products. And some of them will need the products and some of them won't.
Now, I heard about a term recently that was getting more and more attention, FOMO, fear of missing out. How is that steering people's choices?
Again, I think it's steering people to sometimes make choices that aren't in their best interest. If you are going to miss out going out with your friends because they're going to a great dinner or that great holiday.
And what trends are you seeing in your world, Isabel?
Well, I think for seniors, some of the concern might be that they're worried they're not keeping up with the newest and latest of everything, and so they get convinced they need something that they really don't need. And it's more about they're just wanting to project an image that I'm still young and I'm still able to enjoy and do what younger people do, and there's a lot of pressure to do that. I think the old truisms that mom and dad taught you about having enough money in the bank is always a prudent way to live.
I think what I'm hearing, listen to mom and dad. I met up with Dr. Evelyn Zeller, founder of Piece of the Circle, to ask about parents taking an active role in their kids' financial education. So for those families that feel teaching your kids financial literacy is their responsibility, why do they have such a difficult time doing it?
It's a very good question, and I find it fascinating that money is such an emotional charged topic, and it's often taboo. So people feel uncomfortable talking about it.
Now we hear, the kids see everything that you're doing financially. What do you say about that?
Absolutely, without a doubt. Our kids are so aware, and we don't give them enough credit for how much they are aware and how much they take in from everything around them. And so we don't come into the world with financial literacy. It's something we have to learn. So we learn it from our parents, from the people we play with, from TV, and we just absorb all of that, both consciously and unconsciously.
So everything I needed to know about money I knew by 5 years of age?
Part of it, yes, definitely. You actually learned a lot by 5 years of age, not all of it, because our growth is continual. Our learning is lifelong. It is a lifelong journey. So I'm still learning about money and my money issues and what I want to create in the world and continuing to open up possibilities. So one of my favorite questions is, what else is possible?
What else is possible?
Exactly, what else? It's limitless.
I like Evelyn's excitement when she talks about financial literacy. How do you think most Canadians would rate their financial knowledge?
Well, actually, Ipsos Reid did a study in 2017 that showed that 78% of Canadians rated their knowledge very high or high, and then they were asked a number of questions that showed that wasn't true. And in fact, the most overconfident group was millennials.
How does this present a problem?
Well, it presents a problem when people go to make decisions. So for example, putting things on credit and letting it sit there. Buying something on sale on a credit card when in fact if you paid cash for it at full price, it would have cost less.
I can think of an example of a woman when I was in the Kootenays who had needed a new roof for her house, and so she went down to Kootenay Savings to borrow money at whatever the commercial lending rates were. And I said, well, have you been deferring your property tax? She said, no. I said, well, if you deferred your property tax at simple interest compounded but at 0.7% and saved that money for the new roof, you would have been further ahead than borrowing money from the bank. And so it's those kinds of more nuanced sorts of financial aspects that I think people always have an opportunity to learn more about.
Isabel, what I've just heard there sounds like she needs a great financial planner in her corner. Okay. Let's go back to Paige to ask, is there a disconnect between our money expectations and our financial habits?
Patty, some people are overwhelmed by personal finances. Why do you think that is?
I think because when they reach 20 and they learn how far they're in debt from going to school, it's overwhelming to them. And probably because people really didn't start to look at their finances seriously until about 20 years ago.
Well, I think that there's a number of reasons. I think people have too many choices today, and that can be overwhelming because everybody tells you this is a good thing and that's a good thing, and there's some advantages to this and advantages to that.
They weren't taught from a young age, and I sell real estate, and I just see a lot of people that think that all of their income that comes in is expendable, and they don't save anything. And if you're always spending everything that comes in, you're never going to have any savings.
In today's increasingly complex world, is being overwhelmed by personal finances a pretty common thing? What's your sense of that?
Well, I think for the older population, things can become more overwhelming because they're dealing with so many other issues. Oftentimes it's health issues. One of the things that happens, certainly for couples, when there's an estate to handle, when somebody's overwhelmed with a whole bunch of other issues to deal with, and now suddenly they have to start taking responsibility for all of the financial decisions that their spouses used to make. I think if there were better education and preparation, then I think we could avoid some of that.
So what I'm hearing is preparation. What do you see in your world?
What we see is that those simple things we teach about, wants, needs, budget setting, and goal setting at a very young age, lay the foundation for a financial healthy future. When people are older and seek advice, they're actually better positioned to take it. They hear it better, they understand it better.
So we've heard some families say that if money makes them anxious, they don't talk about it. Is that pretty common?
Certainly amongst seniors and their family members, it's very common. And you see it when it comes to discussing issues of estate planning. You see it when it comes to discussing issues of power of attorney, which child in the family is going to get power of attorney. But if there isn't proper planning, it can lead to quite a lot of unintended consequences and outcomes.
And we get to see that in our planning practice when mom comes to us, never having steered the financial ship before, and she's going, what's the course need to be? We'll be right back.
We want to blame something else instead of taking a look at what really is going on and what is our responsibility and what have we created from getting real about it.
Welcome back. How does a lack of financial literacy present itself in daily life?
It shows up in poor decisions that can have long-term consequences. It presents itself in lots of different ways, from people carrying debt that they shouldn't have, not being able to buy the things they need because they're buying the things that they want.
Now, we see some of our clients as part of the aging process reluctant to make decisions, okay? Is that your experience?
Yes, sometimes the indecision is born of a lack of confidence of making the right decision, which is born of not having the knowledge or training or understanding to make the decisions. And again, as you age, that can have some fairly significant unintended consequences.
Now, we talk about parents teaching their kids, but if the parents don't feel that they have the skills to teach their kids, where does that go?
There's a lot of different places that they can learn them. So children will learn those skills at school and hopefully bring some of those skills back home to their parents with workbooks or worksheets that they've got. They can also learn them from their friends if their friends are financially responsible, and in the workplace.
And if they're lucky enough, they've got junior achievements in their school give them that little boost.
That's right.
Let's go back to Paige as she asks, why start young when it comes to financial education?
So we talk about financial literacy being a lifelong journey. Why do you think that is?
I think that if you don't have financial literacy, then you're really not able to think constructively about how you want to set up your future.
Because we need money for our entire lives. There are lots of people who have no money when they reach the age that I am. And it's because it was overwhelming to them, and because of all the changes that happen with rentals, purchasing.
You never know what life is going to throw at you. It's, there's always the unexpected. And so I think it's just important to save. And I also think that as you save, that can snowball into more money if you plan and invest it well. Just like if you spend too much and have credit card debt interest, that also expands in going the wrong direction.
So let me ask you, do you think it's possible we think we have more knowledge than we actually do?
Well, according to Sheila from the Ipsos poll, yes, we apparently don't have as many skills as we think we do. And I think that's a bit of a dangerous thing. So we're going to be going forth and making decisions with great confidence, and we don't really have the understanding to make those decisions.
Like the study showed, that people who were tested after saying that they were really great in financial literacy actually didn't know some pretty simple things.
If I've heard you right, it sounds like 2/3 of people don't know they need help. Let's go back to Evelyn as we talk about playing the financial blame game. So many people are really uncomfortable with their level of financial literacy. How does that present itself in real life?
We want to blame something else, like our loved ones or the credit card or the economy or the government, instead of taking a look at what really is going on and what is our responsibility and what have we created, not from any kind of judgment, but from getting real about it.
So when people feel really uncomfortable about their level of financial knowledge, do they do something about it?
They tend to retreat, or they tend to have a different conversation, or they tend to, like I said, blame somebody, or, again, a lot of coping mechanisms.
So what do you think of breaking this off in bite-sized pieces, or to try and digest it all in one sitting?
Exactly. This is a lifelong journey. Financial literacy, begins when we come into the world, and it'll not end until we leave. So it's a lifelong journey of learning and growing and getting clearer and creating.
Well, you heard it today. It doesn't end until we leave. So why do you think it's important that we view financial literacy as a lifelong journey?
I think there's a few reasons, and one is because what we're facing in our life changes, so what we're going to learn in detail changes, whether we're having our first child, buying a house. Another reason is the environment's changing. For example, none of us knew what a TFSA was, or at least I didn't in 2008, and it took me several years to understand the advantages to putting money in that versus my RRSP. And the third reason is because we just get better as we age. We understand things more, and we learn things differently.
So Isabel, I hear some seniors say, I'm retired. I don't need to pay attention to this stuff anymore, right?
Oh, no, I think you need to pay attention to it, perhaps even more so, because now it's producing your income. When you retire, at least for about 50% of Canadians, their income is going to be generated from the money that they invest and the money that they've saved.
With most of the wealth tied up in seniors' hands, this is the demographic that we work with. This group truly understands the value of advice. We'll be right back.
What if it isn't this really hard, contracted, horrible thing? What if it's like a fun adventure we can go on together?
It's now time to get our panel's final thoughts on financial literacy, a lifelong journey. Now, Isabel, what were your thoughts today?
It's imperative that we keep learning about our financial needs, about the financial tools that are out there to help us in our retirement years, because what we do and the ability to do it is determined by our income, and we're basically responsible for generating our income in retirement. Maybe it is talking to your kids who might have some more financial literacy than you do. Find out who it is you need to talk to, and be informed enough so that you can know you're getting the right kind of information from the right kind of person, and that will help to make sure you don't steer yourself down the wrong road and find yourself with no money and no nest egg that you had saved once you're 5th or 6th year into retirement.
I like your advice. Don't steer yourself down the wrong road. Let's go back to Evelyn for her final thoughts. So what are your final thoughts?
That it's time for us to have these authentic, vulnerable conversations about money and to have no judgment about it.
Now the kids, they pick up on everything that you do, both good and bad. What would you say to that?
Exactly, they do, and that's just the way it is. So what can we do with that? So let's clear what's not working, and let's create what will work for all of us, individually and collectively.
Now, I like how you said earlier about financial literacy. It's not done until you're done.
Exactly, it's a lifelong journey, and what if it isn't this really hard, contracted, horrible thing? What if it's like a fun adventure we can go on together, like individually and together, because we all are in it together.
Now, if you had one last tip for our viewers today on financial literacy, what would that be?
I'd invite you to have the willingness to have that conversation and to know that you're not alone. So there's many experts, there's many books, there's courses, financial therapists. You know, just be willing to lean in and be willing to let go of the judgment, especially of yourself.
So Sheila, what key messages do you have for our viewers today?
The younger you start, the better your foundation is going to be. So if you have children or if you're a young person yourself, don't be afraid to ask the questions and really expose yourself to the ideas. So I think it's important that people take a good look at those in themselves so that they can become financially well.
So what advice would you have for parents that aren't talking to their kids about money?
You know, I would say find something simple that you can engage your child on, and I'll give you a great example. I was at a friend's house the other day and they accidentally let their mint plant take over their whole garden. And so I was talking to them about what they could do with it, and she simply said to me that, well, you know what, my kids are turning this into a business. We're gonna cut off the mint plants and we're gonna sell it.
I'd love to see what starting that mint business does for the kids 20 years down the road. You know, financial literacy is a life changer. So what are my final thoughts? From understanding your money choices to a sense of control and confidence in your future to managing change, these are the hallmarks of financial success. For more ideas, follow me on Twitter at JDoyleVancouver. I want to thank Isabel, Evelyn, and Sheila for sharing their time and expertise here today on Money Matters. Because financial aspects touch so many elements of our lives, it pays to get great advice. Plan more, worry less.